Guys, welcome back. Episode 2 of Chasing Greatness. Today, I'm so excited about our topic because we get to talk about the power of a thought and just mindset. And I know personally in my own life, my mindset has made me a different person today.
Yeah.
And I'm so appreciative of all of those lessons that you have taught me through the years. So I'm excited to dive into mindset and our thoughts today.
Well, this is definitely a happy place for me. There's no question about it. When we start talking about keeping your mind right or good positive thoughts, good positive vibes, there's nothing better for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you always have a positive mindset? Always. Yeah. Were you always like that? Have you always just naturally been a positive person, or is it something you truly have to work on?
I would say that yes, I've always been naturally positive, but even more so because that expectation became such a natural part of who I was that when I wasn't positive, it became such a catastrophic negative for so many people, especially when I got into positions of leadership and things of that nature. So I have to work on it now more than ever. Because there's so many moving parts in my life, right? And when you have kids and then you have adult kids and now the adult kids get married and then you have companies and leaders and everything, like there's so many reasons to be pissed off every day. You know what I'm saying? There's so many mistakes that get made and there's so many mess ups that come from me or just people in my life or just circumstantial things that staying positive is hard.
Yeah.
Like it's super hard. So to answer your question, am I naturally a positive person? 100%. But do I have to work at it more than ever?
Right.
More than ever. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people. They go, I'm naturally positive, so I don't need to put anything in place. I don't need to work on it. That's why I like this topic, because I've put a lot of work in to maintaining positivity. Because here's the thing. Not to dive out. I don't even know what direction you're going.
Dive.
But here's the thing. When I think about it, like I think about my life and I think about grandkids, and I know you and I talk a lot about this stuff, and I think about where we're going in life. There's nothing worse when I kind of fast forward and I see my life. There's nothing worse than being known as that positive guy, that ball of energy, that person that was infectious to so many people in a positive way, to get to the end, be exhausted, not put things in place, and then all of a sudden I get these beautiful little grandbabies, or my kids get to this point where they really need their dad's wisdom or their dad's advice, and now you're just pissed off and you're ticked off and you're tired and you're worn out and you have nothing to offer them anymore.
Right.
That's positive.
Yeah.
That would suck to me. That would suck to be 80 years old and just sit on my couch and think about the good old days of when I could sprint and I could jump and I could dunk and I could do all these things that I can't do anymore. And because I didn't put the right things in place, now my grandkids see the worst of me. That would be terrible. Right. So anyway, I didn't mean to barge in on it, but like that's the reality. Is, yes, I am very positive.
Right.
But I want to stay that way.
I truly don't think that most people understand the power that our mind holds. You know, you've been on a 3-year health journey with Chad and I.
Yeah. And
you've watched us transform our mind. And in the beginning of that, you looked at both of us and said, don't mess this up.
I didn't say that. I said, don't F it up.
You did. I wasn't gonna make
That's
that public.
This is a real, I think that, when I was very apprehensive of doing the whole podcast thing and just, I want it to be real. Now, I don't really talk like that. That's what makes it crazy.
It was like a bomb dropped when he said that word, because you don't ever cuss.
And I don't, but I remember reading this book. It's called The Trillionaire Coach, or The $1 Trillion Coach. Bill Campbell wrote it. And I remember him talking to a guy on his deathbed that was going to give his eulogy. And he was just like, hey, I've lived my whole life balling out, feeding into people, and I don't want your statement to ruin everything I've worked on. And he literally says, don't mess this up.
Right, yeah.
But he drops a little F-bomb in there.
Right.
Anyway, all that, because I don't know, I might have said that word, truthfully, one time in the last 20 years, twice maybe max.
Right.
One's with you.
Right.
But anyway, sidebar.
Right. Well, it's like you see the little reel of the little girl that's standing in front of the mirror, and she's like, I love my life. I love my hair. And it, like, even watching it gets you juiced up. So it's like sometimes it's a little, we have to jump in there and talk to ourselves and convince ourselves, that things are great, even when they don't feel, but it's that our mind has that much power.
It does. Let's go back to you. You and your husband have been on a beautiful health journey, and you were, I hate to use the word morbidly obese, but you were way overweight. You were much bigger, and the fact that you just couldn't see yourself feeling good about yourself,
Right.
like you couldn't put yourself there. And how you were able to overcome and get through every day. I'd love to know that. I'm going to switch this up a little bit.
Okay.
I'd love to know how you did that. And then in addition, like now where your mind's at, what are the things other than just statements that have been said back and forth? What are some things that keep you so dialed in? Because here's the thing, so many people can get to a goal. So many people can get to an outcome. Very few people can stay there, or maintain it, or actually even make it better. And you all have done that.
So there's a picture I've seen of a very large woman, and the top of her is actually sculpted out, and like the top of her is rock hard, chiseled, and then the heavy part of her is still there where it's chiseling. And I always joked, there's a strong woman inside this fat girl.
Okay.
And so after you have helped me pull that person out, I realized I am unstoppable. I'd had people in my life, my entire life, that have always said to me, Whitney, you can do anything that you want to. Whitney, there is nothing that can stop you. And I never believed it myself because I allowed this outside of rejection and that constant in my ear, you're rejected, you're not good enough, I listened to myself lie to myself for so long, and once I realized I had the power to change all of that, it has been life-changing. I am completely a different person than I was 3-4 years ago.
What are the things like today, other than people that have spoken into you and just encourage you to stay the journey, but what are some things that you tell yourself on a consistent basis to stay positive with it? Because once you get there and the applause stops, that's where most people struggle.
Yes.
That's the truth. When the applause stops. Oh, you lost all this weight. Well, now it's expected. I remember my grandfather telling me this. I was sitting there. My grandfather ate peanuts all the time, right? And he sat in his rocking chair that reclined back. That was back in the day. He spent a lot of money on this thing. And he had a peanut jar. And I used to always want to talk to him just because I knew at the end I'd get some peanuts. That's why I don't want to talk to him, but he'd give me all this beautiful wisdom. And I'll never forget him telling me, and I was in high school at this point, and I had had some success, right? I had a lot of applause going. And my grandfather literally says, he goes, the true test of a man's character or a woman's character is when the applause stops. And then he goes on to say that the greatest honor in your life is when you're doing special stuff and everyone just thinks that's normal.
Wow.
Think about that. When you do special stuff every day, like you might get up and speak to a big crowd, or you might get monumental results from your industry, whether it's real estate or investments or lenders or whatever business you're in, and you get these monumental results all the time. And now no one ever applauds you for it. You never get any kudos. You might get some plaques and awards, but there comes a time you don't care about that stuff. And all of a sudden, what is awesome, still present day awesome, is not applauded, and no one is giving you like kudos or saying how awesome you are or how cool it is that you do these things. Like, he goes, that's the true test of if you're doing something and you're going to do it for a long time and if it's worthwhile. Yeah, I remember my grandfather telling me that. Yeah. And I was young still too. And I was so cocky and arrogant, I don't know how I'd even seek in. It's like, yeah, they're gonna applaud me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you mentioned your grandfather, I mentioned you, and I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here with him. Like, you are a massive mentor. I mean, you are my number one mentor. And people can't do it alone. I think it shows the importance of having that mentor that helps you understand how powerful your mind is.
Absolutely.
You and I had a really uncomfortable conversation one time, and you challenged me, dig deep in your mind and figure out why you've convinced yourself that you're not worthy. Because everyone around you sees that you are. So whatever you have to work through to get to the bottom of that, and you cared enough to challenge me. And so talk a little bit about that mentor and how important that is.
Well, I think you got to go back to how you started it all, like what the mind does for us, right? Everybody wants to be a psychologist. Everybody wants to be in personal development now. Everybody wants to, but the mind is not changed in thousands of years. The mind is evolved, but it has some functional DNA attributes. It has some functionalities that flow into everything. Your thoughts dictate what your physical body does.
Absolutely.
I'm talking organs, I'm talking hands, fingers, eyes, mouth, your thoughts. Gandhi has an unbelievable quote. It's in our conference room. I share portions of this all the time. It says everything starts with a thought. Your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, or what I like to call my non-negotiables. And your non-negotiables of life, they become your legacy. So your thought, without a thought, a legacy doesn't exist. Without a thought, your behaviors don't exist. Your standards don't exist. And so understanding that what goes in your mind creates your thought, right? What you see creates your thought, and then your thoughts flow to everything else. And so when you talk about mentorship or coaching or leadership or all these little hot buttons and hot topics, it is all driven towards accomplishing one thing ultimately in life. Do I believe in anything that I'm doing, or do I not believe? And when you have thoughts that you don't believe, or that you're not enough, or that you're not good enough, it's guaranteed you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're not going to accomplish enough. But if you have thoughts in your mind that are already existing that you are enough, even if they're wrong, like, not that you're enough, but even if they're wrong, like someone to come to me and say that I could do a 360, cock it down backwards dunk, and they speak that into my mind, what they forgot to tell me is at best it's going to be on an 8-foot goal. Right? But in my mind, if someone tells me that, I'm thinking it's going to be on a 10-foot goal. Right?
Absolutely.
So we have to go to the questions that we ask ourselves. When we talk about mentorship, when we talk about the greatest mentor in your life should be yourself and your relationship with Christ. That's my belief, right? And if you can't mentor yourself, it doesn't matter how someone speaks into you. What changed for you, when I think about you, what changed for you is you started mentoring yourself. And then you were willing to accept the teacher to expose himself to you. But until you started mentoring yourself, meaning you started leading yourself and putting the right thoughts into yourself and believing the right things within yourself, nothing I said was going to truly change you. It was going to maybe cause you to make a different decision along the way, but it wasn't going to create life change. And so when I think about that, right, it gets me so excited about how powerful our minds are to our belief, and then ultimately how infectious that becomes to everyone around you. And it gives you courage, and it gives you all these other attributes that are in our life.
Well, it was you asked me a few minutes ago, how you maintain that. It really started in a spiritual journey with me. I had to realize I have to die to my desires, because let's be honest, one of the main reasons you and I get along as well as we do is because we love some food. I mean,
no question.
Love food. And so I had to start making the choice. Like, I can't act upon what I want all the time, because if so, I would eat Mexican cheese dip every single day. That's another thing you and I have in common. Dirty Mexican. I mean,
I love dirty Mexican.
it's that. I mean, I tattooed it. The word surrender.
Mexican?
No. The word surrender on my arm for a reason. Because it is a daily surrender to what Whitney wants. A daily surrender to what my mind wants to tell me is not truth. And so it was really a spiritual journey for me as well, and one that I continue on, for the Lord to continue to show me that He created me to be who I am, and that person with confidence, and then He surrounded me with the right people and the right leadership to continue to instill that in me.
That brings up such a good point. So going back to like how strong and how powerful our minds are muscles, and a lot of people don't realize that. That's what's crazy to me, is a lot of people don't realize our minds are muscles, and every muscle, if you don't work it out, what happens? Atrophy sets in.
Absolutely.
And what is atrophy? Weakness, fatigue, right? Lack of strength. But when you work that muscle out, and there's a lot of ways you can work that muscle out, right? Talking to other human beings, you can work it out. Reading books, you can work it out, right? I like to do Sudoku, right? And I'll sit there and do that at night, yeah. But it doesn't matter. You could do a crossword puzzle. You can play Scrabble. You can play card games, you know, all kinds of things that you can do to work that muscle out. Based upon knowing what your desired outcome is, like your why or why you're doing this thing called life, right, is going to give you the ability to create a workout routine.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I believe in a workout routine is how you start your day and how you end your day is going to dictate what tomorrow is going to bring. Let me repeat that. How you start your day today and how you end your day today is going to ultimately dictate the tomorrow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right now is going to dictate what I will accomplish 5 years from now. What I'm doing right now is going to dictate what happens in conversations 20 years from now.
Absolutely.
And so putting little things together, and I think with what we're going to do here and what we're navigating with this podcast, I just want to give back to the world an opportunity for them to put some framework together on how to live an awesome life. A life where you feel fulfilled and joyful and positive and full of energy. I want people to also know how to run filters out. We're going to talk about all this stuff over time, right? So you can be crystal clear on what you're focused on.
Yeah.
But to win the game, everyone wants to win. I used to tell my ball teams all the time. Now actually even before I told my ball teams, I would tell their parents because I started coaching when these kids were young. And every parent wanted the same thing from their kids. I just want my kids to have fun. I just want them to have fun. And then they felt having fun was what? Goofing off, smiling, happy,
out on the
cutting
court.
up. And what athletes, or really what anybody, because in our DNA makeup, right, we are a competitive being. And they want to win. And when you win in life, you have fun.
Yes.
And so what I told them, as I said, we are not going to have any fun in practice for the most part. But what's going to happen is when we play our games, they're going to walk away having a blast.
Absolutely.
So when they come home and they're complaining and you want to call me up and you're like, why'd you run them so hard? Why were you so hard on them? Why were you so tough on them? Why did you, require them to do extra? Why did you call them out in practice? All the things, because I coached your son too, right? Why did you do all these things? I'm going to tell them because I wanted them to have fun.
Absolutely.
And then they're going to go, well, it didn't seem like fun. They're coming home. They're crying. They're upset. I said, were they crying when we won our championships? Were they crying when they took home not second place medals, but first place medals? Were they crying, right, when they beat teams that they were paying the coaches to coach them, and they were paying these little middle school and high schoolers to play for them, and we beat these teams. They would recruit them from all over the world, and here we are in little Mount Juliet, Tennessee, right, and going out there. Were they crying then? No.
Yeah.
And now fast forward, these kids, guess what? They have a belief system that if they can endure the tough, they can win the life.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to follow a program.
Yeah.
And what does that program look like? The first part of that program is if you was to take I always think of things in sports, sports expressions, right? And I think about a baseball field, and I think about running to first base. Everybody knows who's ever played baseball that if you want to win the game and not get out, when you hit the ball, if it lands on the ground or if it goes over the fence, you have to run to first.
Absolutely.
And so let's assume first base is your character, who you are, right? And then if you advance to second, right, you're one step closer to winning the game. Well, let's assume second base is your community, your environment, the people you surround yourself with. And then if you get so fortunate to advance to third base, now you know, hey, I'm still winning the game. I got a chance to win the game because I'm on my way to scoring, right? And the third base represents what you do in life, like your effort that you put out, what you create productivity around, your competence in life. That's what third base. And then coming home represents a start and the end of what you're committed to. So when you step up to the plate, right, it's funny how you start and end at the same place in order to win the game, kind of what we were just talking about. And you get up there, that's a commitment that you make. But what happens, and this is what most people do in life, this is what you did for a lot of your life. You don't do it anymore, and I love watching you evolve and how you do, but you did this. You got up to your plate, and you were so committed. You're the first one in. How many years? I mean, years. You're the first one in the door, right? That's commitment. And you step into that batter's box, and you are so committed to what you're getting ready to do. You're committed as a mom. You're committed as one of my partners. You're committed to leading the company and managing aspects of it. You're committed, and you hit a bomb, and that ball flies over the field, over the fence. I mean, it flies, and here's what happens. You said, I am going to run to third base because the focus of today is what I'm doing, and that's my number one focus today. And you run to third base after you hit a ball over the fence, which should be a home run, correct? If you play by the rules.
Right.
But you run to third base and you focus on what you do. And you focus on your competence, and you focus on your skills that you have and your effort. You focus on that first, and you touch third base. What happens?
You lose.
You lost.
Yeah. You lose.
You lose the game.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't want to lose, but most people live a life where they start off every day losing the game, because as soon as they get out of bed, what's the first thing that they do? What do I got to do today? What do I got to accomplish? What if I had all that pre-decided? I don't even think about that until 9 o'clock when I walk in the door, because it's already pre-decided. That's a novel concept.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who wants to live their life like without the people? I mean, why would you want all of that, even if it's success and great and money and financial? Like, if you don't go all the way around and take some people with you to celebrate with you when you get to third base, like, what a lonely and miserable existence.
Kind of playing to that visual, right? So let's say you do get up, and a lot of people do get up and they have short-term success by going to work every day and just out working everybody. But what happens with whatever it is that you're doing as far as work, it's going to dictate who your community is.
Absolutely.
If you work at a bar, right, you're going to hang out with bartenders and waiters and cooks, right? If you work in a factory, right, you're going to work out in your environment, and your community is going to be people that are in that factory that you work with. That's going to be a part of your environment. Your environment is going to be dictated by what you do. And then who you hang out with, right, what happens? That's who you become.
100%.
That's just the reality, right? Who you hang out with is who you become. You've lost all three ways, in my opinion. And everybody's like, well, that's how I've done life my whole life. I get it. Well, I hate to tell you, you lost. You lost. And you're like, well, how do you win? Well, you run to first base. Well, what is first base? That's our character. If we're looking at this visual, that's our character. There'll be a visual, hopefully, that people will share on this podcast, or it'll be in the comments section. But it's what I call the field of dreams, and it'll kind of spell this out. But if you get up to the plate, I'm committed, boom, hit a bomb. No, let's say you hit a dribbler, but it just happens to be in between the players, and you barely nipped it, and you go to first base. You've already started winning the game.
Right.
But when you get to first base and you're talking about character, if you're not asking the right questions, who am I? Be honest with yourself.
Yes.
Whitney, be honest with yourself, right? Second question, who do I want to be? Now you got to be really honest with yourself, because who you are, really, if you're honest, and who you want to be are generally they're far apart.
Right.
Fair enough?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then for me, as a believer, I got to ask the third question, who's God want me to be?
Right. Absolutely.
And when I ask those questions, they're not to make me feel bad or good. They're just to give me correct information, right? So I can evolve my life and keep winning the game.
Absolutely.
And so when I'm honest with myself on all those fronts, I get a chance to advance to second. You're like, well, second base is your community. Yes, I start living a life of reality and truth, of going, this is who I am. This is who I want to be. This is who God's called me to be. I got some work to do. I got to lose some weight.
Right.
I got to stop thinking about myself in a negative manner and think about myself in a positive manner. I've got to communicate differently to my husband. I got to communicate differently to my children. I got to communicate differently to my close friends. Hey, crap, I got to have some friends.
Right.
Right?
Right. Absolutely.
And you start evolving, and then what happens? you don't even have to work at advancing. You've got a team behind you that's stepping up to the plate. And then you got second base, which is your community. And now your people start to be attracted to you, and you become attracted to them based upon your character and not what you do.
Correct.
And now you're living life.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to take you to third base.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, guys, obviously, it's all a part of chasing greatness. And so I just thank y'all for coming along on this journey with us. Our goal is truly to help you find a nugget from each time that we're together of something that may take you to greatness, that help you around those bases to where you live an incredible life. So
I want to make sure that you all understand that this is something that we want to give to you guys so you can win the game of life, that you can have a legacy that people talk positive about and not negative. And at the end of the day, you can make a choice every day to go be great.
yeah.
You'll cut that off, I assume?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.